There's Danny. It's almost time for dinner, Danny. So you want to get a sawmill, and you get a lot of choices. You get a lot to figure out. Well, what I'm going to try to do is it's Sunday afternoon. It's playoff weekend. See who's going to end up going to the Super Bowl. If you guys watch my channel, you see that I already did a couple of videos on my 272 that I wrecked and fixed. And I was watching back a little bit of my content, and it begged the question: how do you get where I am? How do you get to be able to work in your backyard for yourself and hopefully make a little bit of money and be self-sufficient by buying a sawmill? Because I think what the big decision is for most people is you've got to decide. It is one of a few different types of people. There are people that have super, super deep pockets, have all the things in place, and are just going to go out and buy the best sawmill that's going to fit their circumstance with no regard for money whatsoever. Then there are people that have a little bit of money who want to start a business like me and have to be smart about their decisions, but have some of the things in place and want to start a business. And then there are people that are really short on money. I'm sorry about the wind. You have to be really careful about what you buy, have nothing in place, and have to start from scratch. And I think it's important to put yourself in one of those categories, because all of your purchasing decisions are going to be based on several of these factors. If I had no money worries whatsoever, just said, you know what, I've been out, just give it a look. Oh, he's right behind me. I've been out, I'm a CEO at a company or a huge retirement, tons of equity in my home, blah, 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 blah. And I just want to work at home. Then you're going to go about this completely differently than somebody that's pinching pennies and going in and promising to their significant other, male or female, well, I want to spend $5,000 and this is what we're going to get for it. So anyone who's been watching my channel for a long time kind of knows my story. I was a builder. I'm a traditional hand tool joiner, somewhat of a craftsman. People hire me to do very, very expensive, funky stuff, curved, funky, organic. I started out chainsaw milling because we had to take down a bunch of Norway maples in our yard that were breaking apart and falling down. We didn't want to waste the wood because we wanted to use it in our woodworking business. That's how I got started into chainsaw milling about 8 years ago. 8, 9 years ago. And then everybody found out that I had a chainsaw mill and started hiring me to come to their yards because they felt bad about taking trees down. And they said, hey, can you cut this into wood for us? And that turned into a business. I sold slabs for a few years. I started building my own saws, modding, importing my own saws, building saws for other people. It became a whole business in itself. And COVID tired me out. We were so busy building during COVID because everybody fled the cities and came down here to my area of the world in Cape Cod and said, they're not going to lock us down, and we want to make our house better. We can work from home. Back then it was kind of a new thing, working from home. And we want to make our house kind of like our big dollar house up by the city where they want to lock us down and we can't even go out to eat. And they hired people like me, very expensive people like me. And for 3 years, I was busy building, and it wore me out. You know, going to the lumber yard every single morning, loading my truck, going, working all day, putting it in. And I decided that I wanted to work from home, so I decided that I was going to pull the trigger and buy myself a sawmill. And I was going to turn it into a business. Now, I already had several key things in place to be able to do that. And these are decisions that you're going to have to make. When you go to start out, some of the decisions that you're going to have to make are, how are you going to get logs? How are you going to move logs? Where are you going to sell your lumber? What kind of lumber do you want to cut? What kind of mill do you have to get to cut that lumber? And I took all those factors into consideration, and how long is it going to take to get that mill? And I took all those factors into consideration. Part of my upbringing in the construction industry, after watching my father fail and fail and fail over and over again because he was too leveraged in debt, one thing that I learned was that I don't want to have debt. I'm never going to have debt. If I can't afford it, I'm not going to buy it. And that really, really ties into your purchasing decisions of what you're going to get to support your business. And also, where are you going to do it? How much room do you have? All those things. We'll talk about some of those things, and I'm going to try to talk off the top of my head because it's Sunday and I want to go back in by the wood stove. But I'm going to try to get as much information into this as I can so that you're going to fit into one of these categories and you can kind of relate to them and you can hopefully make good decisions and maybe better decisions than I did. I had a customer that I did a lot of work for, a friend of mine, who owed me a little bit of money, and we wanted to get a machine. And as part of that money, we ended up getting the Bobcat T650 from him with like 1,600 hours on it and around $26,000. It was a great deal. Now, we got that before the mill because we knew that if we bought a sawmill, we weren't going to, how are we going to load logs on it? We needed to have a machine first. The other thing I did first was that I went and set up my sharpening station first before I ever got my sawmill so that I could sharpen bandsaw bands. And oh, hi, hon. Okay. You taking Danny? All right. I'll see you in a little while. Kate's on her way out. I had a friend, well, we have friends who are building a magnificent timber frame up in New Hampshire. I went up and helped them in several different stints, but one time for the timber frame raising for a whole month, sleeping in a tent up in the woods. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Well, they got a sawmill and they milled most of it. They'd never sawmilled before, and they bought a wood miser. I don't know if it's an LT15 or an LT40. It's one of the two. It's an older machine. They bought it from an old man up in New Hampshire, and they started milling their own lumber. Well, I got bandsaw bands from them that were dull and started practicing on them to make sure I could sharpen. These things that I tried to set up in advance make a huge difference in how successful you're going to be. You are going to get a sawmill and you're not going to be able to put logs on it or struggle to put logs on it, especially anything big. Forget small stuff. You can drag it around with your pickup truck and roll it around and whatever, but you're going to struggle to put logs on it. You're going to struggle to keep bands sharp. You're going to get a box of 5 bands with your sawmill and you're going to be out of business in 3 days. You're going to go through those bands so fast you're not going to believe it. You need to be able to sharpen your bands. You need to be able to put logs on your sawmill. You need to be able to get logs. Well, I knew all the tree guys from my chainsaw milling days, and I had those relationships, and I fixed their saws and port saws for them and all other kinds of things. So I had all those relationships. So that was in place. I got my machine. I figured out how to sharpen, and then I had to figure out which sawmill I wanted. Category-wise, all right, you're the wealthy person that doesn't care. You're going to go out, you're going to buy a brand new machine. You're going to buy the best sawmill you can get. You're going to buy log loads of logs, and you're going to pay for them. All those things, and you're probably going to hire people. But if you're going to work in your business, I'm somewhere in the middle, or you're Joe, Tom, Dick, and Harry, who's got almost no money. You have no way to put logs on. You have no relationships out in the field, but you want to saw lumber. And you need to think about these things all in advance before you buy a sawmill, because you have to buy a sawmill that's going to work for you. You have to decide what you're going to do. My sawmill, Norwood HD36 V2, is a lumber baker. I had cut and sold slabs for years, and the slab market fell apart in COVID. Everybody started doing it, and the prices went to shit, and it's too hard of work to do chainsaw-wise and moving slabs and everything else. It just wasn't worth the money anymore. I wanted to get into the lumber side because I don't need to make a lot of money, but I want to make some money. Nobody around me is really cutting pine lumber. You have to go almost 40 minutes to the closest mill that cuts pine lumber. So I figured I could steal a little section from my particular little area and just cut beams and 2x6s and 2x10s and trailer decking and 1x10s and 1x6s and mill some customer logs and this, that, and the other thing. And that would work for me. You got to decide what's going to work for you, because it's going to matter in what you choose for a mill. If you are going to want to bang out lumber, you need to get a mill that will bang out lumber. If you're going to want to cut slabs, you need to get a mill that's going to be able to cut slabs. Now, this mill right here, I do cut slabs with it. I can cut out to about 28, 30 inches max. I have a machine to handle those logs. You know, you're not handling those logs without a machine that's going to cost you at least as much as your mill. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know my thoughts on what to get for a machine. But that sawmill purchase is an important thing. What are you going to get? Now, for me, I was watching delivery times. It was a couple of years to get a Wood-Mizer. And that's not hyperbole. It was 26 months to get a Wood-Mizer. I could have bought an LT35, which was fully hydraulic and about the same cost as what I have going on here right now, except I have a little bit more length. Or you're going to get an entry-level mill. Now, if you're going to get an entry-level mill, you have to understand that your business is entry-level at that point. This is not an entry-level mill, and it's also not an LT40 fully hydraulic. And I've had conversations with Norwood about this. This mill is a lumber making machine. Lumber like you see on it. Lumber like you see over here. This is a lumber making machine. Now we have upgraded. We're actually 24 feet long. We've upgraded to hydraulics, which is all part of the thing in the beginning. You know, someday we want to upgrade to hydraulics when we can afford it. Well, in this case, here we are. We didn't start that way, but this is the only machine that you can do that with. You can go out and get a Woodland Mills, and I think Woodland Mills has come a long way. They make some really good mills, but you can't get to where this mill is. You aren't going to get to this. You're not going to get hydraulic unless you're, a genius like the Log Father, and if you don't watch his channel, you should, where he just built his own mill, or Matt Cremora, who built his own mill. Now, Matt's is a little bit different. Matt's is more of a slabbing mill, and the Logfather's mill is more of a lumber mill like mine. Or if you're Jerry Bigelow at Bigelow Woodcrafts, you watch his channel too, where Jerry just says, oh, I want hydraulics, so I'll just make them. You know, if you're not one of those guys, you're at the mercy of the manufacturer. Now, I can tell you firsthand, 100%, that it kept me up a lot of nights having to spend the kind of money, my money, not borrowing money, but my money that it costs to grab a mill like this. But there's no way in the world that I could be more happy with the decision to go with Norwood and this mill, and for all the reasons that I'm talking about. And we'll get into the surrounds and everything in the business in a minute, but this decision for me, without borrowing anything and having actually to spend cash to get it, was a big decision. And I had to put a lot of faith in the company that it was going to work for us. And no, it has been really, I don't think I could play it up enough. They've been a godsend. They've been an absolute godsend. They've taken me on as an influencer, as an ambassador to their product, and the support that they've shown me has been unbelievable. I mean, it's been really, there's no possible way that it could have gone any better. And I'm going to support them in return. You're going to ask me, what should I get? I want to make lumber like you. I'm going to say you should get that. That's what you should get. And you can go out and you can get it. And at some point when your business grows a little bit, and you figure out where you're going to get logs from, and you figure out how to put logs on the mill, and you figure out what your workflow is and how to store them and how to keep them and how to sell them on Facebook Marketplace. And you get that business going a little bit and you start making a little bit of money, you can add hydraulics and you can upgrade, and you can get your mill to whatever level you want to get it to, but you don't have to do it all up front. Back years and years and years ago, I was working in a fish company with a friend of mine, very, very wealthy kid who's dead now. He died very, very young, crazy lifestyle. And every single time that we wanted to start a business or do something, he would always sit me down and he'd say, look, you're going to blow your brains out, kid. Your costs on your debt and everything going to be astronomical. In the wintertime when it slows down, you're not going to make it. Just trust me, I've been doing this for 30 years. You know, you got to stay cash. You got to stay liquid. You don't want to do this. And you know what? I'll say the same thing with this. If you think that if you've got tons of money and you don't care, that's a different story. You know, it's easy to make $1 million out of $2 million. It's easy to make $100,000 out of $1 million. What's hard to do is it's hard to make $1 million out of $10,000. That's really hard to do. To do that, you've got to be smart. And I think that's the genesis for this video is how can you be smart? Can you go out and get a Woodland Mills HM130, or do they have an HM136 now, I think, or an HM126 and start a business? Sure you can. You can start it with the chainsaws. I was making tons of money when I was chainsaw milling. Just that market has changed. Can you do it with a Woodland Mill? Sure you can. The question is scalability, and as you get bigger, let's say that you want to hire a person and you're going to have to shell out, you know, just round numbers to do really hard work. I mean, this isn't easy work. To do hard work, if you're going to hire somebody that's going to work weekly, you know, you're going to pay out $1,000 a week, you know, for somebody to work with you. How are you going to be able to cover that? You know, what are you going to make a week? You've got to take those things into consideration. So your scalability is very, very important. That's one thing that makes Norwood really, really great, is that you can start out here and end up here. And I think in Wood Miser, you need to start out here. And in a Woodland Mills, you need to start out here. But you don't have any ability really to grow. In Wood Miser, you're starting out here, and your ceiling's high, but you have to start out high. And I think Norwood's right in the middle, where you can start out kind of in here and end up here pretty quickly, which I think that makes Norwood very, very unique. If you watch my channel, you follow my videos, you understand where I started and where I am. And I'm just growing and growing and growing. I have, and I'll show you around a little bit because we're going to talk about some other things, but I have just sitting here on the ground right now between this big trailer order for Lawrence Lynch Corporation and the sycamore logs that are sitting there for Mike Trotto, the spruce logs that are behind him for Paul Moskovsky, and these 4x4s that are here for Jason at Highlander Farm that we have to make 4x4s out of. I've got $4,000 in milling sitting here, just as it sits right now. That's, for me, having no debt, that's a lot of money. How can you avoid some of the mistakes that I've made? If you look around my sawmill here, what you're going to see is piles of wood, right? I started out, actually, these little pines right here, these little pieces of white pine are a perfect example. Everything that's sitting around here are offcuts from customer orders. I do not have the room to stock lumber. I thought I did. We have almost 3 acres here. I thought I had the room. I really don't yet. I haven't got my infrastructure set up yet to stock lumber. You see 6x6s laying over there on the ground. This lumber over here has been pillaged and poured through. I actually give lumber away on Facebook Marketplace now. I'll say, if you want, I'll take a picture of this and I'll say, free wood, come get it. Because where it's going to end up is there. It's going to end up in the burn barrel. Because all this is just offcuts from customer orders. Now, I get most of my lumber for free from Tree Guys, and all this is residual offcuts. I've cut no stock just from customer orders, which you see over there. It's all just leftover stuff that was too good to throw away. Something you have to take into consideration. In the beginning, I was trying to sell the stuff, and unless it's really special, it's hard to do. Because, you know, people are going to want to come out here. They're going to want you to cut a 8-footer down to a 6-footer and go through piles and everything else. It's better for me to give it away or burn it, to be honest with you. I make my money there. That order that's going to go out probably on Tuesday for this big, huge construction equipment, flat lowboy trailer, which has got some of this going with it and some of that going with it, what's on the ground there going with it. That's where I make my money. I make my money cutting customer logs. What's left over from those customer logs, if I don't give it to the customers, ends up sitting around here on the ground and it's got to get burned. It's another thing you've got to consider. The other thing you have to consider is that right there. That is slab wood hell. If you're going to be smart, you should start setting up a way prior to even getting started at how you're going to deal and sell this stuff. Sell it, give it away, whether you're going to turn it into firewood. You know, my plan always had been, up till I got too busy, was that I just all bucked it all down into 16-inch pieces. I split it on the splitter, and then it went in the wood stove. Well, now I cut way ahead of what I can keep up with, and I end up with this. Well, one of my tree guys is going to come out and chip it all for me. I'm going to load it with the Bobcat. He's got a huge chipper. He says we can chip everything that I have sitting here in an hour. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to chip all this. And then do you sell the wood chips? Do you give the wood chips away? I mean, be good in your community. Maybe you give them away, and I probably will. I'll put a big pile of wood chips out front. I have a campwood bin out front that I sell campwood in. Actually, it was just a customer. It was a customer here earlier, and then a customer here picking up a couple of minutes ago. And that's a good source for getting rid of some of this stuff, just like all this oak, all these oak edgings right here will all get bucked down with a circular saw right into my bucket and go, most of them will go in the campwood bin. But you need to be smart about how you deal with this stuff. Don't make the mistake I did thinking that all this stuff is sellable. It is to a point. At the same time, it's almost more worth it from an exposure point just to give it away. Just take pictures of it, put it on Facebook Marketplace and say, come take it for free. You put it up for $5, you get 5 people. You put it up for free, you'll get 100 people out here taking stuff. And as long as you're going to get money if you have to deal with stuff. So if they say, well, can you cut this down? Yeah, then they got to pay you. But if they just want to come out and rummage through piles and take stuff, let them do it. Let them take it. This is another part. Okay, we'll walk around out back out here. Little Sunday video. These are long straight pine logs, 20 foot plus, that can be turned into beams or whatever. I've got black poplar, monster pines, more black poplar, tupelo, tulip poplar, more pine logs, older pine logs that need to be cut right away. I've got white oak, small white oak over here. I've got some more small white oak over here, black oak and red oak, maple, specialty logs, monster spruce for Paul Muskowski that's going to be chainsaw milled. I've got some customer oaks here. I've got a slab buyer that I keep the big white pine logs for, is sitting right there. I've got elm in here. Where are you going to keep all this stuff? And at every corner, as I look around, I see myself overstocked on some stuff and I see myself understocked on others. I am short on oak right now, long oak. Not so much short on oak that's, say, 8 to 12 feet, 8 to 10 feet, but I'm short on oak that's 10 to 16 feet. So if the customer for the lowboy trailer, they have one section that's 18.2. Now, luckily, they like to stagger those joints. But if they ask me for 18 footers, I don't have logs here for them right now. So if they called me up and said, well, we want you to cut this lowboy, come measure it, and here's this one section that's 18.2, I can cut 18.2 on my sawmill. I don't have any logs at 18.2 in oak. So this is, all part of the equation at how are you going to manage, situate, what's your workflow going to be like, who are you going to sell to. That has to factor into the equation. This summer I built this equipment shed right here, and that's an equipment shed to support the sawmill, all out of what was just sitting around on the ground over here. I do have also, I'm going to put in a kiln right here facing south. That's south. I'm putting a kiln in right here. This is all getting pushed into a planter that's going in front of this. And that way I can start drying some of my hardwoods to be able to sell hardwoods, and I probably will end up with a storefront. The problem with hardwoods is you go ahead and you take one of those oak logs and you mill it out. and you put it on Facebook Marketplace, out of every 10 inquiries you're going to get, 9 of the 10 are going to say, is it dry? If it's not dry, those all go bye-bye. So I need to be able to, in the future, unless I'm just going to cut customer logs for the rest of my life, and that's all well and good, but I'm giving up a huge portion of what I can market dry in a store that I can dry in a kiln, in a solar kiln that's going to go right there. So I will probably end up with some sort of, when I can find the right deal, a storefront somewhere to sell hardwood lumber and softwood lumber dry that people can just come in and pick out of. So that I don't have to burn all this. I can actually, some of these oak 2x4s and some of this right here, this black oak, would be completely fine to be in racks and sell if it was dry. You'll have woodworkers that'll use it. A lot of what's over here, I could put in racks in a store and sell, you know, for premium prices if it was dry. So I am going to have that available down the road as I can afford to get into a place. And the kiln that's going to sit right there is going to dry wood just to service the store. You know, let's take a walk up here, get around the corner up here. Hopefully I don't fall down. I got some huge elm right there. That stuff's got to get chainsaw milled at some point. It'd be beautiful tabletops. And that's big, big money, guys. So as you walk up here into, walking by my storage yard here, so you can see all the spruce we got to cut for Paul. There's a whole bunch here. And that's the sycamores that we have to cut. My stack of cedar. And then this is customer white oak that we slabbed. There is a hard maple behind it that we slabbed. I've got pieces up here that are just too good to get rid of. There's a nice big black oak sitting over there that's slabbed. I've got 1x10s and 1x8s, a pine sitting here. I've got 16 footers of oak and pine sitting right there that have to be dealt with. These are some of the things. This is some of the area that you don't want to make some of the mistakes that I have. You think you have all this room, and that room gets eaten up really, really quickly. I think to tie this video up, and I would just say that, you know, if you guys have any questions, if you're looking to get into this and you have questions, you reach out to people that do it. You know, you look at, you watch Robert Milton at Hobby Hardwoods, you know, an expert. Watch Nathan at Out in the Woods. Watch Matt Cremora at what he can do. Watch the Log Farther. Watch Jerry Bigelow. Watch the Horvaths. The Horvaths are just incredible sawyers. And watch all these people learn, take little pieces and figure out where you can fit in. But this decision right here, what you buy, and this decision right here, what you buy, make those decisions with a lot of thought. If I was somebody who wanted to get into cutting lumber for people, I think that is just an incredible, incredible option. I can't recommend Norwood enough. What are you going to get to load a mill? Go out and get yourself a used skid steer. Something in the 70, 75 horsepower, 75 to 90 horsepower range that's got 2,000 to 3,000 hours on it, because you're going to put next to no hours on it. It's not like it's going to be out running in construction all day. And what you can do, you know, with my T650 here at 74 horsepower, there's not a log that I've ever had come in that I can't pick up. I've put less than 300 hours on this machine in like 5 years. Plan your surrounds. Plan where you're going to put stuff, how you're going to stack stuff before you start. I didn't do it enough. I didn't do a good enough job. And in the beginning, we started making lumber bunks to put stuff on, like you see those bunks under there and those bunks over there that we made out of trash pine. We thought we had enough. The bunk over there, we thought we had enough. You never have enough. You need to have storage options thought through. So the second that you start running this thing, there's a workflow to how you go and where it goes and where it gets stacked and where it gets stickered and where it gets moved and where it gets covered and everything else. So you don't end up in the situation that I'm in with stuff lying around saying, you know what, I can't physically cut stock right now to sell on Facebook Marketplace to people because I don't have a place to put it. I would be better off 100% buying a chipper and having a chipper sit next to my mill and literally cut the customer's wood, and everything that comes off the mill that's not customer's wood, blowing it through a chipper right now. I would be right now. I don't mean you'd be better off doing that for a living. You would be better off having a place to have all this stuff organized and stacked and stickered and be able to sell it all. But for me right now, the way that the situation I've got myself into, I would be better off taking everything off the mill that's not going to the customer and chipping it into a pile and trying to sell the wood chips. I'd be better off that way. Or you're going to end up in this type of situation. As much planning as I went through, as smart as I thought I did everything, my biggest failure has been, where am I going to put stuff? How am I going to deal with what comes off the mill? How am I going to get rid of the slash and the waste and the byproduct and everything else? And this season, going into next summer or into the spring, my goal right now is to, and as bad as this is going to sound, because we recycle, what we do here at Pirate Solutions Forestry is we recycle wood and we keep it out of the landfill. My goal right now is to chip all of that and all of this, everything that's sitting here, run it through a chipper and have a big, huge chip pile so I can clear this all out, so I can have shit piles of bunks and storage solutions made up so that this never happens again. I never get to this point again. We thought we could burn it all, but you know what? I don't have the time to process it all, to burn it all like I did in the beginning. In the beginning, it was, this came off the mill, this got cut up, this went in the firewood bin, and then it got burned. Well, now we're past that. We've grown past that. We have to grow now. I've got logs sitting around that need to get cut that I don't have time to. I'm going to have to make a decision very soon of whether I'm going to go through all my softwood stuff and just cut cans and store the cans, because they'd be easier to store that way in big piles of cans, that when somebody says I need 1x10s, I say, well, give me an hour. I can cut you all you want and bring down some cans and cut 1x10s. That's the position that I've got myself into. But I thank God that I made the best decision here that I possibly could, and I made the best decision here that I could to keep myself liquid, to not bury myself in debt, and to have the scalability to increase and get better and better and better. These decisions were terrific. Now I've just got to be smarter about how I'm going to deal with all this stuff. So that's kind of my Sunday afternoon video. I'm going to go and watch some football, make myself a drink. I'll probably stay up half the night thinking about this stuff and how I will make it better. The only real solution is to have, if you watch Robert Milton, he talks about lumber storage bunks and stuff like that. is to make bunks and bunks and bunks out of what I have lying around as much as I can. You know, use all this stuff for the topping of bunks, like that one on the ground down there. Use those 6x6s for the bottoms of the bunks that you have sitting around. Have tons and tons and tons of bunks, clear a little bit more flat space, and everything that comes off the mill from now on has got to be standardized, cut down, stickered, and stacked on bunks and covered so that I can viably sell that stuff going forward. So what exactly would be a wrap-up take for this? Sawmills, you have to be smart about what you want to do and how much money you got to do it. If I had unlimited funds and unlimited space and a machine, what would I go out and buy? A big baker, a Timber King, an LT70 Wood Miser? Probably. Noah doesn't. Noah, full disclosure, doesn't have a sawmill to compete with those. They don't have a sawmill that competes with, you know, the big baker or LT70 or even an LT40 hydraulic or an LT50. They don't really have a sawmill that competes with those. There's a lot of residual costs in those big mills too. You got to think about that as well. You know, what's going to happen if you blow a motor or you blow a hydraulic drive or something like that? You know, those are all big dollar fixes. But if you had unlimited funds, yeah, you can go grab an LT70. Most of us, we don't have unlimited funds. And in some of your cases, you got to convince your spouse, hey, I want to spend $5,000. What are you going to get for $5,000? You know, what are you going to get? I'll tell you what, Norwood on their Frontier line, they just got their Frontier line, which is, let's say, in the ballpark with the Woodland mills, the lower tier stuff. They have their Frontier line hydraulic now. You can get a hydraulic mill in that $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 range, I think. That's a home run. Because, you know, it's hard work, but you can spend that money down there, or you can get something like an HD36 or an HD38 that's scalable to where you can build it as you go. I think that makes Norwood an absolute home run. Now, I'm a little bit of the exception to the rule, because what's going to happen to most people is that most of you are going to say, I'm going to get an HD36 and someday I'll go up to hydraulics, and you never will. And then how long are you going to live with the manual mill? Most people are going to probably sell it within a few years. I mean, let's be honest. There's a very small percentage of people that are going to move on. You don't have a ton of competition out there. You've got competition is more riffraff. They're going to start out, they're going to think about it, they're going to try it, and they're going to fail at it, and they're going to go away. And then there's probably a whole pool of riffraff out there. A lot of people are going to buy an HD36 and say, someday I'll go up to hydraulics, and they never will. So hopefully for a Sunday afternoon, I hope you guys are sitting around somewhere, you're getting ready to watch football, you may be playing with your phone, you're going to watch my video, and you're going to take something from it. Hopefully you'll ask me questions if you have some. And hopefully I can help you not make the same mistakes that I did, although I am going to continue to grow and learn from my mistakes and make all these things better and better and better until I've got it down to a really, really good workflow and something that works for me, and enough money coming in to where I'm happy. I don't want to make $1 million a year. I don't even want to make $100,000 a year. I'd be happy making 50 grand a year on lumber, as long as I enjoy what I'm doing. And those are some of the decisions that you're going to make, that you're going to have to make also, is how big do you want to get? You know, that's going to lead to employees and machines and blah, 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 and permits and this, that, and the other thing. I'd rather stay small, cut from my local woodworking people, and make a little bit of money, enough money to live and be happy. And I can tell you 100% that this mill purchase was exactly the perfect purchase for me. That Bobcat was exactly the perfect purchase for me. And you guys need to make sure before you jump into this that the purchases that you make for you, even if it's not a Norwood or it's not a Wood-Mizer or whatever it is, that it's the right decision for you, because that's the most important thing, is to maximize your capabilities and stay away from burying yourself in debt, and have this so that it can be fun for you so you don't stay up at night like I do some nights. So that's kind of this Sunday video. Whoever you're rooting for today to go to the Super Bowl, I hope it works out for you. Right now, as a New England Patriots fan, I'm hoping that the city of Buffalo, New York is going to be happy this year. That's my hope. Buffalo's a rival. We hate them. But I'll tell you what, those poor slobs up there in Buffalo, New York, to live up in that climate and live in that area and be denied for so long, I hope Buffalo ends up going to the Super Bowl and giving those hardworking American people, the lifeblood of this country, giving them a little bit of joy for the rest of the freaking winter that they have to live through up there. So that's my thing. This is Pirate Solutions Forestry. And for now, it's Pirate Solutions out.